The legislature, the elected officials.
And the reason money matters is because people make an argument that money can be turned into votes, right? And I think we have an opportunity, if we get it right, if we get it right, that if we are able to flip the House, if we are able to move the legislative agenda forward that has broad swath support in the state of Michigan, right, that we can undo, at least for some time, the effects of money. The other thing is this: if we build a movement, right, if we build a movement, at least there's some oppositional force to money. You see what I'm saying? And the reason that the bosses have been able to run amok with our social policy, particularly when it comes with education, is because there has been no force on the other side calling them out. We have been, frankly, our party has been in shambles. And we have not been able to say you are opposing a thing. Instead, we have allowed them to own the agenda by saying they are for a thing. And so for us, when we can come up and say we are for clean government, we are for open conversations, we are for education that's owned by communities and not by corporations, then it says you are investing money to be against those things. And so I think part of it is good old-fashioned politicking is about having conversations with people and building movements, right? I think you all are here because you believe in that. And so we have to, at some point, start believing in that, our own sort of juice, and saying we are going to create a movement by which we are able to inspire a set of policy, right, to which everyone else is going to have to either be a part of or oppose, right? And that's the moment where you can look at lobbyists and say, look, right, they are paying money to oppose this thing, right? Get on the right side of it. And I'll also say this: when you're asking yourself who you are going to support in this primary, right, which is step one, I want you to look at who's taking money from lobbyists. I want you to do the homework of looking at who's taking money from lobbyists, because we have it, and we won't, right? Take a look. Look at people's, when the report comes out in July, take a look at who people are getting money from, and what that tells you about the kind of government they are going to be a part of, right? Because part of the reason that I am running is because I do not want government to be bought and sold anymore. I want government to be about the kind of people that I committed my life to serving as a physician and a public health advocate. And so when we sell out to money, at some point money runs the game. And it has for a very, very long time in our state. And I think the time is now for us to reclaim that. We're in a moment right now where there's been a politics of division, of hatred, that's told us that we can't actually come around the same tables because we are fundamentally different as people. That lest we talk to each other, right? If we talk to each other, we might see that we disagree and, oh no, what would that mean for us? And so we're told we really shouldn't talk. And my point here is that the challenges that poor and working people in places like Detroit face, and the challenges that poor and working people in places like Michigan face, those are the same challenges. And they are largely manifest on their future. So I grew up loving two things. I grew up really loving people, understanding who they were, their challenges, their opportunities, the tragedies in their life, and what they've done beyond them. And I grew up loving science, because my parents were both engineers, and everything we talked about in that house had everything to do with being able to prove what is and what's not. Okay. And so I thought I was going to take science and I was going to use it to benefit people, and so I decided to become a doctor. At Michigan, I studied biology and politics. And most people would say, these three are completely separate. How do you put those together? And I said, I don't know. But to be honest with you, if biology is the rules by which our cells make decisions about scarce resources to keep us alive, then politics is the rules by which society makes decisions about scarce resources to keep us alive. Those two things are actually quite parallel. And as I started to learn about health when I went to medical school, I realized that the challenges that made people sick usually had far less to do with things going wrong in their cells, and usually far more to do with things going wrong in society. Because the things that make people healthy, that give people access to this thing we call health, they're not evenly distributed. When we drove here, just 15 minutes, we drove about 9 years of life expectancy between Detroit and Ferndale. It tells you something about who has and who doesn't have. And that has to do with access to things like a job that you know is not going to go away because you got sick, that's going to pay you a living wage. Things like access to food, and clean water, and clean air, and access to housing, and access to a trauma-free environment where you can walk unmolested, independent of who you are, what you look like. Those are the things that are going to pattern one's health. And so I became far more interested in why people came to the hospital in the first place rather than what I could do for them while they were there. And I decided that, for me, the career was going to be public health. I was appointed at 30 as health director for the city of Detroit. I just want to tell you a little bit about the history of the Detroit Health Department. This is a department that was transparent. We are the 50th of 50 states when it comes to transparency. I believe in opening both the Senate and the governorship to FOIA. And I think that starts first. I'll also say this. If this state does turn around and elect a 32-year-old Muslim doctor, my sense is we're going to flip the house.